Welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I am your host, RC Maxfield, and if you haven't already, be sure to hit that big red button and stay in the know on the Alabama Crimson Tide all season long. It's your one-stop shop for the latest news, rumors, even recruiting news, and the best part about it, it's absolutely free, and we're coming to you basically right after the game is over to recap what was supposed to be, arguably, the best game of the weekend in college football in Week 5, and Alabama has a tendency to ruin those big kind of games because that's exactly what they did here by destroying Lane Kiffin and the number 12 Ole Miss Rebels 42-21. Bryce Young with his first true interception, and I know that he has two now. Jamison Williams had a tip ball last week against Southern Miss, But now he does have his first one, and really what this comes down to for me is this Alabama offense is just stupid. It's stupid good, and it all is centered around Bryce Young. I don't know of any defense that'll stop it. We'll talk a little bit more about some pieces in the offense here in just a little bit. But looking at the scoreboard right here on your screen, and really the biggest name on there by far is Brian Robinson Jr., and he will be a big talking point in this video. But before we get to talk about some of the players in this game against the number 1 team and the number 12 team in the country, what is it? And what do I mean by that? What's your one-word reaction to Bama's win over Ole Miss? I mean, again, this was hyped up to be one of the games of the weekend. Obviously, there was another big SEC matchup between the Hedges and Athens, which really crapped the bed, at least if you're the Razorbacks. But overall, I mean, you're looking at one of the best teams in the country and Ole Miss, and then the best team in the country in Alabama, and my one word is undoubtable. And what I mean by that is Alabama is undeniably the best team in all of college football. They proved that this week against an offense in Lane Kiffin that has given everybody fits, including some teams in the SEC, but undoubtable. And that's what Alabama is. You should not have a shred of doubt in the Crimson Tide moving forward, whether that's on offense, whether that's on defense, special teams, coaching, whatever it may be. This team is undoubtedly the number 1 team in the country, and they're proving it week in and week out already through 5 weeks. 3 top 25 wins for the Crimson Tide, and expect next week they'll add a 4th when they head down to College Station and face off against the number 15 Texas A&M Aggies. But before we get into more of the recap, got to shout out today's video sponsor, BetUS. Head over to chatsports.com/tidebet to get the best deposit bonus on the internet right now. All you got to do is use the promo code TIDE125, and you're probably thinking, RC, what the hell is that going to do for me? Well, sports gambling is getting popularized all over the place, and, well, we need you to get involved with it, and we know you want to as well. All you have to do is go to chatsports.com/tidebet. Use the promo code TIDE125, and they will match your deposit bonus and then some. Nobody else is doing this on the internet. Let me tell you that right now. Okay, so let's say you put $100 in. They'll match it and then some, as I mentioned, and give you 25 extra, and you'll have $225 to play with all season long. Here are some of my favorite bets from NFL Week 5 as we transition over to the pro ranks, and some NFL guys with Alabama ties in some of these games. It seems like every team except for the New Orleans Saints has at least one Alabama guy. There's a fun fact for you in this one. But I got the Browns -2 at Minnesota. I got Tom Brady, even without Gronk. He's going to dominate at New England. He's got a vendetta against Bill Belichick. I am taking the over for Carolina and the Cowboys out at Jerry World in Arlington, Texas. And then I've got the Packers over the Steelers, who might be the most disappointing team in all of the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers look abysmal. And then I have the Rams staying unbeaten and beating the Arizona Cardinals. But most importantly, I've got them covering the 4.5 and beating the Cardinals and remaining the best team in the NFC West. But again, go over to chatsports.com/tidebet. Use the promo code TIDE125 and get the best deposit bonus on the internet today. BetUS, they're doing it better than anybody. You just got to get involved with it. The Alabama offense versus Ole Miss, we were told this was going to be a shootout, right? And one team held up their end of the bargain, and that was the Crimson Tide. As total yards, they had 451 passing. Bryce Young had 241. Rushing, it was Brian Robinson Jr. just carrying the load for the Crimson Tide there with 36 damn carries. Unbelievable. And then 6 TDs to 1 turnover for the Crimson Tide on offense. Obviously, we have to talk about Bryce Young and what he did in another top 25 matchup, and he just kind of continues to impress, right? He had that one bad throw that was intercepted in the end zone, actually, that really ruined an Alabama drive. But overall, I mean, my goodness, I don't know if you can ask for a better start to your career as a starter at the premier school in America when it comes to college football. Bryce Young, in my mind, is clearly, and I want everyone to hear this. Look at me right here in the camera. Clearly the Heisman frontrunner right now. It was between him and Matt Corral for me, and this one, Matt Corral laid an egg, and you got to give a lot of credit to the Alabama defense. But Bryce Young is clearly, and I mean clearly, the Heisman frontrunner moving forward throughout this year, right? When you think about what Alabama has offensively, whether that's the John Metchies of the world, whether that's the Jamison Williams of the world, he has the weapons and then some on offense for the Crimson Tide. And really, he doesn't even have to do it all himself through the air. He can also do it through the run game. And Brian Robinson Jr., damn, he carried the load today. 36 carries. I get exhausted walking to the bathroom. I can't even imagine what it's like to do 36 carries against a Power 5 defense. I'm honestly just exhausted thinking about it. My goodness. 36 carries, 171 yards, and 4 TDs. Did his best Mark Ingram impression in this one against the Ole Miss Rebels. And listen, I will wholeheartedly admit I'm wrong. I said Jace McClellan should get more carries. Nope, stop it. RC, you're wrong. Tell me down in the comments I am wrong. Brian Robinson is no doubt the RB1 moving forward for this Crimson Tide offense. He proved that and then some today. He's versatile. He can go out and he can kind of be used as a scat bat. Not probably what you want to use him for, but between the tackles, he is the best pure runner on the Alabama roster, and that's saying something when you have a guy like Roydale Williams, when you have a Jace McClellan, when you have Sanders as well. You have premium running backs on this roster, but Brian Robinson, the Tuscaloosa native, is by far the best one and no doubt the RB1 moving forward for Alabama all season long. But where are you at in terms of your confidence level in Brian Robinson Jr.? Scale it for me down in the comments. How confident are you in Brian Robinson Jr. as the lead back? I don't think he's in that Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, any kind of range like that, right? But I don't think Alabama necessarily needs that with this offense and how it's really well constructed on the outside with playmakers at the wide receiver position. And that leads us into our next guy, John Metchie. I truly believe he is the most talented wide receiver in terms of a skill set on this roster, right? In terms of physical traits, I don't think he's the most gifted. I think that's Jamison Williams, who is arguably the fastest guy in all of college football, right? But John Metchie is becoming Bryce's security blanket. And I think that is so ever so important in the sense that when you have a young quarterback in Bryce Young, who is playing well above his years, obviously, he's the Heisman favorite in my eyes right now, you need a guy that's a veteran wide receiver that's been there and done that. John Metchie is that guy for Alabama in the sense that he's not afraid to go across the middle, get dirty a little bit, take a big hit. But he can also make a couple guys miss, brush off some tackles, and then he can also go deep and beat you with some pretty solid speed as well. But overall, you need that guy in your offense that can be the escape route, the escape guy in your offense in terms of the wide receiver position. A lot of times it's a tight end. Now it's John Metchie, and you love to see that Bryce Young is realizing that he has a security blanket in John Metchie. You know who needs a security blanket is the opposing quarterback, because Will Anderson Jr. is playing no games this year. My goodness. Unbelievable start to the season for who, in my opinion, is the best linebacker and maybe defensive player in all of college football. He's absolutely ridiculous. 9 tackles, 1 sack, 2.5 tackles for loss, and not to mention he also had 2 QB hurries, right? Let's be honest about it. He's the most impactful defensive player, not only in the SEC as you see on the screen. I might even say he's the most impactful in the country. And now I know you got Thibodeau up at Oregon who's injured right now. You got a lot of great defensive players around the country. But Will Anderson does everything And I mean everything on the defensive side of the football at an elite level for his side. You need him to drop back into coverage as a linebacker? He can do that. He can communicate. His football IQ is off the damn charts. Not to mention he is an elite, and I mean elite pass rusher, as you can tell by the numbers he's put up today with 2.5 tackles for loss. Also had a sack in there as well. He is the most impactful defensive player in the SEC and will help elevate that Alabama defense even to another level due to how great he is and really just the worry he can take off of other guys that maybe don't have as much experience on that defensive side of the football. Remember, he had that kind of scary mishap against Mercer where we didn't know if he was going to miss time. I don't know. Maybe he's Superman, Iron Man. I don't know. Maybe we need to coin that phrase. But Will Anderson is absolutely ridiculous. And you know what else is absolutely ridiculous? You not being subscribed to this channel. What the hell are you doing? If you love Nick Saban, you better subscribe to this channel. Nick Saban does it. He loves us. I'm sure he knows who I am. I'm sure he knows who this pasty guy is talking to you on your screen right now. Hit that sub button if you want to stay in the know on the Crimson Tide all season long, because I'll be honest with you, I don't think we're going to be talking about any bad football games for a long time. Maybe once we get down to Atlanta and they have to play Georgia. But right now, it is smooth sailing for Alabama. Hit that big red button so you can enjoy all of our coverage all year long right here on the Alabama Football Report. Again, Alabama wins it 42-21, dominates from the start, and really just gave the Rebels absolutely no chance down at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Nick Saban continues to take it to his old assistant coaches, this time in Lane Kiffin, but a 42-21 win for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and they dominated from start to finish and really gave no hope to the Rebels who, yeah, they had a couple of TDs late, but overall, Alabama just absolutely dominated and just really took the will to win away from the Rebels, who, I will give credit, they took it away from them for about 2 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter, they had a little bit of respectability and at least got some tutties on there. But looking forward to week number 6, Alabama 5-0 will head down to Texas, to College Station specifically, and face off against Jimbo Fisher and the currently number 15 Texas A&M Aggies. While we were recording this, Texas A&M sits at 3-1. They have not played in week 5 yet. Kickoff was scheduled for 6. Alabama's 5-0 and will look to head down to College Station to get yet another win against the top 25 team, making it 4 on the early season for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. Again, 42-21, Alabama over Ole Miss, and they just continue to dominate and really take names doing it, especially down in Tuscaloosa.